Sauce.
Hey, you like Pez?
It looks like that. Here's Heaney from the boundary line. He's an expert at these. From the boundary line!
Hello and welcome to Behind the Boundary podcast. I'm your host Pez. I'm here with Sauce and we're here at 5:35 on a Thursday night, ready for Thursday night footy. And Sauce is a Geelong man. You're in a bit of a rush.
Not in a rush to get through the podcast, in a rush to get the value out to the listeners, Pez. That's what I'm going to focus on, is getting the value out. And you know what? If it aligns with me getting home and sitting in front of the tally with a couple of crisp ones, well then, so be it. But yes, in a little bit of a rush tonight.
And we have to mention it is the bye round and the bye weekend. So there are only, I think, 6 games. So across Saturday, Sunday, tonight and tomorrow. We've only got the 6, so it's a bit of a break for everyone from a action-packed round of footy. So tipping's a little bit different. All the different competitions are, down to the business end as well. So it's a very interesting round.
Down to the business end as well as in our loser competition, down to the final 2 punters. I know a lot of people would have got an email today about the final 2 competitors and them, fighting it out for the last person standing for a huge cash prize of over $1,000. So exciting thing for that. And one win from a team would have ended all for everyone.
Yeah, so we'll pop that out for those people in the competition out on the thing. If you're interested in that, you can have a look at that after the bounce of the first game tonight. So we go from there. Now, moving into there, we are pretty well on track in our season. So I did want to speak about our bet review, Source. So if we just jump straight into that.
Soft review. It's no official review. How does it end? We don't know. They've kind of lost, but they've won as well.
And a very interesting betting round with St Kilda getting up as the underdogs against Sydney, their Source. And we had the trend against St Kilda of the players with the highest disposals. But Nick Blakey did his hamstring in the first quarter, and he's off the ground for about 9 minutes. And I'm sitting there going, oh, well, at least if he's subbed out now, it's with Sportsbet, so we'll get the justice refund, and we'll at least get a bonus bet back. Then he comes back on, and then in the third quarter he gets knocked out and then gets subbed off, so there's no justice refund there and no good for Nick Blakey. His over-under was 21.5. Even with that extended time on the bench in the first quarter, Source, he was on track with 12 disposals at the half, only needing 10 more to cover that line, and would have filled a lot of people's pockets.
Yeah, so on track for that, and in mine I had him as well for that 20, but then I got a little bit unlucky with Errol Goulding, and for some reason Sydney decided that they were going to do a shuffle and start the young man who's averaging 25 to 30 disposals per game, ripping it up in that midfield against a team that gives up a lot of possessions to midfielders, and decided to put him forward for some reason and exchange him for Isaac Heaney. Really don't understand the thought process for that, but you're not to know those things with when that sort of things happen. It'll be interesting to see the trends, but be aware this week that that's what happened last week, and it wasn't just an anomaly in the system. They were playing Errol Goulding completely out of position.
Yeah, I had a 330 pop and a 575 pop, so not expected to win, but escaped with one bonus from that. We're head-to-head on the Friday night, Source, so we do need to speak about that. The Bulldogs versus Port Adelaide, and you came out on top. And the thing I found most interesting is ever since the Gold Coast Western Bulldogs game, where the Bulldogs got obviously favoured, and people would say, for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, the Bulldogs have been heavily favoured by the umpires. But the umpires were so against the Bulldogs, it was ludicrous. There were calls that you've never seen called before that happened, and big swings of momentum in that game.
Yeah, the overcorrection that the AFL made about that Gold Coast game, that it was sort of popularised through all the footy shows, you really saw that up until halftime, and then general. I've been a state sort of league basketball referee. You go into the game at halftime, and then generally what happens, it is on the stat sheet. You do review it, and it's not that you have to go and even up, but you're made aware that if there are free kicks there that can be given, they're the ones that you give to ensure that it looks like you're a bit more consistent. And the overcorrection that was made really was costly and very evident. I mean, it's sort of an overcorrection that aligns from the week before. But Port Adelaide were the better team on the night. Port Adelaide did escape with a victory, but it really really tainted the comeback from the Doggies, because every time they got a little bit of momentum, some sort of crappy free kick, or they weren't rewarded in front of goal like they have been.
And what we do always say, you do have to overcome the umpires, but it was very difficult for the Bulldogs to overcome that on the Friday night. So Port Adelaide walk away with a win, and so did you, Sauce. I was at the game on Saturday, the Hawthorn versus Brisbane game, and Brisbane led by 17 at half time without really doing anything. And Hawthorn looked really good. And in the second half, Hawthorn looked amazing. And you had a trend. You had the 4+ goals. You picked 2 of the players. And I've said all year, it's really hard to pick players in the Brisbane forward line. Danaher, 4 goals. Cameron, 4 goals. Didn't happen for them. But it did happen for Eric Hipwood.
Yeah, so the trend was bang on. So a forward, and generally a tall forward, and I did explain this on the podcast last week, that main forward generally has a deficiency against Hawthorn, and we had Eric Hipwood kick 4 goals. Cam Rayner popped up for 2. He looked a bit dangerous in that fourth. I thought he was going to get it after we spoke about that on the podcast, but the trend continues. So yes, the bet was wrong. It had a bad punt. When you've got 2 guys who are sitting on 30 goals apiece, and the next closest is 14, well then you think, you know what, I'm pretty bang on here to get one, and then Eric Hipwood goes and snags 4. So that trend still is alive, and look to utilise that against Hawthorn again.
Well, there goes your 2 units there, but it doesn't break the bank, barring what people on TikTok seem to think. Speaking of that, I'm very disappointed that this video wasn't put up with the Adelaide and West Coast, because it was an absolute perler of a bet for both of us, Sauce. So I went with your trend from the week before, which didn't get up, the minus 99.5. Got it at 680, chucked my bonus bet on that, and that was one of the easiest bets ever to watch sail through.
The live bet, Pez, in the second quarter was up to 120.5 as the plus minus. Incredible value at 99.5 for 680. And what a way to get you back on track and get you in the winners, to clear 11 units. So it's that incredible, Pez.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing for my season, already being up, and then just adding that to be more than a unit, a round up, and move my ROI up towards 14%, which is absolutely fantastic. I was on the trigger on the live, kept refreshing, and I nearly pulled the trigger at West Coast plus 130, but I just couldn't do it. It was already guaranteed that it was going to be over 100, and I didn't want to get too greedy.
And the way that they were playing, it looked like it could even go bigger than 130, which was great for me, because early on, as I said, Adelaide are a high-scoring first-quarter team, and the under-over for total goals in the first quarter was 6.5. Adelaide kicked 7 goals on their own, so they beat the trend on their own. That was a nice little collect for $2.07, and a couple of units for me there as well.
Yeah, one I do have to mention is the Saturday night as well, Sauce, is Fremantle versus Richmond. We loved the line at minus 14.5, and Richmond came out on fire. We were severely wrong. I escaped with a bonus bet, which I get to use this round, because Fremantle ended up coming back. But I jumped on the live bet, Sauce, and I have never... I gave up on the live bet in the third quarter, because the over-under, I had it under 156 because I saw the rain pissing down, and then it kept raining and not raining, raining and not raining. And you would not believe it. It went up to 172 just before the third quarter. They kicked 2 quick goals into the fourth quarter. It was up at 178 live, and it ended up at 155. And the bet sailed through 2 units to save profit on the game for me.
But just what we've been talking about is making money on the live bet if you're following it and watching the game. You've got to be watching the game to understand the trends and what's happening and momentum, and there's a lot of money to be had there if you can pull the trigger at the right time. And
Mug was saying he's in Spain at the moment. Yeah. He's tweeting and he's going, yeah, this looks like it might be done. And I'm like, yeah, 100%. It's finished. I've lost another 2 units.
One of the greatest recoveries ever. And that was obviously at Mug Punter, not just some mug that's just calling you up. But yeah, that was a great way. And as you said, we completely got the read wrong. And hats off to Richmond. Really interesting discussion point them this week. Are they back? Are they not? But we'll get into that when we're looking at the bet slip. But
amazing. Very quickly, this team's dead to you. I was on Carlton money line again with the 12-up promo. Killed it in the water. Should have been 5 goals up at halftime with all the misses they had. Kerno kicked 0-4 in the first quarter, and Mackay's still snapping from 40 metres out, which is really bizarre. But I only brought that up because I think I'm going to go back to the well again, and they're not dead to me yet.
Do you know what's so funny about that? Well, we'll talk about this in the bet slip, but it was a really interesting game, that one, because Carlton controlled that game quite early. They had a whole range of different things. They led a whole lot of categories except for the free kicks. The free kicks they lost by almost 19, but they're inside 50s, Pez. It was a 50. I think it was 56 to. I've got the stat up just here, just pulling it up. It was 56 entries to 41 entries. For 22 shots versus 21 shots. Like, they dominated. That forward structure. It sounds so stupid and so ironic, but Carlton are coming with that thing. They've got the right things there. They've just got to get out of their own head and kick the freaking goal. But again, if you followed my trend of them being dead to you, you would have made a packet on Essendon, because they were good value.
Yeah, Essendon, and that third quarter was absolutely amazing when Carlton just decided not to run, and very well out-coached Michael Voss was by Brad Scott.
Definitely so. But one thing that I did, wasn't steering away from, Pez, was during that Carlton Essendon game, looking at the trend of Carlton continued to give away a lot of possessions. Essendon can give away a lot of possessions as well. I had a bet that I put on with the over-unders on the disposals. This was a nice little 2-unit bonus bet with the bet return on Sportsbet. Cherry to get 27.5. Saad to get over 21.5 and Caldwell to get over 23.5. That saluted midway through the fourth quarter, Pez. $6.50 with the bonus, a nice little 11-unit collect. That means between the two of us in two bets, Pez, we had a nice little 22 units returned from our bonus bets. So 0 money staked and 22 units returned on bonuses.
And that's a strategy people can use on their bonus if they want to go to a higher odds type thing. You don't have to hit every single one, but you do have to hit, once in a blue moon you get all that stake back from all those bets you lost but returned a bonus bet. So that was a really good one there. And then you had Melbourne ML, and a lot of people were on Collingwood. And speaking about teams that should have smashed them, Melbourne should have won this by 6 goals.
The fact that they couldn't put them away, a Collingwood team who we know is, historically over the last 3 seasons, very good in close games, very good in the last quarter. All they needed to do was kick one of those points in the last quarter. The first 7-8 minutes was all controlled by Melbourne, 3 or 4 posters, a couple of ones that didn't even make the mark, a couple out in the full, and then they went on this 6-6-6 run, straight out of the middle, goal, straight out of the middle, goal.
Even Bailey Fritsch was missing a couple, which is one of the best kicks in the league.
Did I dick normally, but...
Yeah. So it ended up being a fantastic round, even though there was a lot of red on my side there, Sauce. It ended up being a fantastic round because we made the right plays on the bonus bet. So I staked 7 units in the end for a profit of 8.34 for the round. So a return of over 15 units for the round, which is really good. And then my season to date, I've profited 13.43 units, which is just, an average over 1 unit per round. At 13.96% return on investment. So I'm happy where I sit at the moment.
Yeah, I went a little bit more trigger happy on the units there, Pez. I stacked it just a measly 17 units. I don't know what happened there. The long weekend, I was getting a bit bored. I did a little bit of extra research, and it obviously made some good because escaped after 17 units down to walk away with a profit of 5.74 units. And not the best ROI, but 30% ROI. Absolutely killing it. So staked for the season 102, but the profit loss, as you just said, I'm sitting about an average of 2.5 units per game. 29.14 is my profit for the season, and that's been the trend, just continually hitting little wins here and there. And in a week where there's not many games, Pez, I can guarantee I'm not going to get 17 units down, but
but you're not going to lose 29 units either.
Exactly right. So it's going to be one of those ones where you look forward to it.
Now, historically, I stake more units than you, and interestingly enough, this season that takes you over me. You've staked,
literally dating that round there. I jumped over you.
You've staked more units than me, which is unheard of in our 6 seasons of Behind the Boundary.
But I guess when you're hitting runs and you're hitting trends and they're working for you, Pez, you put your money down. I'm really spewing about that Brisbane bet with the trend was right, and I loved the, because that would have been perfect. But again, the trend was right, the wrong player, which you get sometimes in punting. Okay. So I like the call.
Yeah, excellent. And post round 13, we're ready to go, and we're ready to get into round 14.
The fact that the size of the bets was relatively small.
Now bets with an opportunity about 50 metres out.
I was with a mate, and we were getting sort of ready to leave, and he said, I think I'm going to whack 10 on Maxi. Do you want some as well? And I said,
oh yes, yes, yes.
Absolutely flying through this podcast, Pez, with all the units down and all the wins, and absolutely flying into some specials.
Cyril takes a special and goes bang.
Yeah, so the best one out there is probably Tab with the 3+ leg same game multi, all games still. So well done to Tab there. Bluebet have the 12 up promo at halftime and get paid out. We head over to Sportsbet, which have the 3+ leg same game multi if one leg fails on the Thursday and the Friday night matches. Lads have that same thing, one refund per day. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they've also got the mega multi where you can put 4 legs together if one fails. That's head to head. for AFL that can go there. And then Neds also have the 12 up at halftime early payout on the Friday night. So haven't seen too much out there. We've been getting a few messages on the socials about, have you seen this bet on, it starts with P, points, and then another word bet, and you put them together
I'm not really
or something.
Sure. Yeah.
But we just
Problematic bet.
we don't have those apps on our phone
Pussy bet?
because
One of those?
we can't get a bet on with them, so there's no point even looking at it. So if you do want to make some money, haven't been banned from that account, they do tend to give out free money a little bit as well. So yeah, jump on them if you are well inclined.
Yeah, and also just one other thing to mention is the sports bet. A lot of accounts that haven't been restricted, they have their bet returns one per day, so they don't actually appear on your system until that actual day. So Thursday and Friday, because it's a special, they won't appear. But on the Saturday games, they actually appear for one game. So find that game, usually the over/under disposals, because that's where the best are, and then you can make some money there as well. Let's get into round 14, Pez. As you said, a few teams have the bye, and some teams will be coming off the bye too, which is going to be really important looking at the head-to-head markets, and have that in mind when you're placing a punt. But we start things off, as I said, Thursday night footy is back. Adelaide Oval, Port Adelaide taking on Geelong, $1.54. Port Adelaide are absolutely flying. They've had 10 on the trot, first time in their actual AFL career history that they've done 10 on the trot, taking on the Cats, 241 outsiders. Minus 10.5 is the line, over under 169.5. Pez, this is going to be a huge clash. I'm really excited to see this game, as we alluded to in the pre-show. But this is going to be great footy. Thursday night footy, two clubs that traditionally don't really like each other, but traditionally play a hard-fought game. Adelaide Oval is going to be buzzing. This is going to be great.
Yeah, well, Port Adelaide on a massive streak, ready to go, and Geelong, before the bye, coming out and beating the Bulldogs by 22 points. Swamp tweeted before, actually, both of these teams' last win was against the Bulldogs, both by 22 points. So that wouldn't have happened
recency bias.
It wouldn't happen too many times in history. Bet
the draw again.
But yeah, Geelong have a history of the last 10 years of coming out from the bye and not really performing. But this is a huge game, especially if Geelong were to get the win. They could really try and cement themselves at top 4, with Brisbane losing to Hawthorn last week and a few things going in their favour. But we speak about Geelong and their lack of disposal winners as well. So here's Sauce. So you've got in some games where they didn't even get a player have 20 disposals a few weeks ago. So I've just gone to Bet365 because the player versus player disposal markets are out, and I just wanted to have a little bit of fun tonight and watch the game without a result or without having to worry about over-unders, and watching the live bet tracker, the live bet odds. So I've just gone a player that I really like in Jason Horne-Francis to get more disposals than Tom Atkins. Now, the reason I do that is because Dangerfield comes in, okay, and we know Atkins' centre bounce attendances have really been up since Dangerfield is out. But now with Dangerfield going back in there, I feel like Atkins' role will be back to out on the wing. They don't really get possessions that highly, so I think Horne-Francis is a really big role player for Port Adelaide, and he gets on a little bit of a heater. So I've had a look back through the stats, and when Dangerfield was in there towards rounds 4 to 7, Atkins' disposals was down between 15 and 20. So I think Horne-Francis can get more to him. It's $1.91 for him to beat that. If it is a draw, it's a loss because they allow you to bet on the draw at $17. So $1.91, Horne-Francis to get more disposals than Tom Atkins.
I actually love that bet. I think it's a really good bet because not only have Danger come back in, but Holmes comes back in as well, and Duncan as well is looked to return. So, a range of midfielders that are coming in. I mean, they generally take out Danger. They're not up and under sort of midfielders that get in there and get the ball and the contested pill. But Atkins' role has been, he's been used as a bit of a quick fix in a range of different things. So his role will develop tonight, and that'll be really interesting. I'm glad you brought up the bye, and Geelong's form coming out of the bye hasn't been great. It's historically been documented. If you look at since 2013, they're 3-7 after the bye. So, but in saying that, no team has really mastered it. The stats over the last 10 years indicate that it's about 46% that a team wins after the bye. If you look at the last 5 years, okay, that ups to about 60%. So in the modern era, after a bye, teams really struggle. Last week, 3 out of the 4 teams that came off a bye in Brisbane, they lost. Freo, they lost, and Sydney, they lost, and the only other team that actually got a win was the Saints. They were playing the Swans. So you could have gone 4 from that. I'd be really, really wary of Geelong this week coming off the bye, as well as Gold Coast, which will follow into my bet in a little bit later as well. So they had the bye last week. So what I'm doing this one, to me, there's not a lot of things that stand out in terms of a punting standpoint. You look at possessions that we normally target. Both teams are sitting at 17 and 16th at giving away possessions. So they don't really give away a lot. And then you look at how many possessions they're actually getting as a team. They sit 15th and 16th. So they're not a high possession teams. You know, we know historically that, this season, sorry, not historically, but the Cats haven't really gone over 20 disposals. There's been multiple times where they've had 1 player go over, 2 players go over. With 3 new players in there from the last 3 or 4 weeks, you can't really say. One of the deficiencies that I have found is Port Adelaide giving away goals to smaller forwards or mid forwards. So Cody Waitman last week kicked 3. Luke Bruce the week before had 9 shots, 5 goals. The week before they played Richmond, Martin had 2 goals. Taranto is probably a lot smaller. He had 4 goals. Again, Melbourne makes it really hard for these things because they don't really have anything in that forward line and they just sort of have a pings. But Bailey, he's probably a medium sort of forward. He had 2 goals, 5 shots on goal. You look at Jaden Stevenson. 2 goals, 3 shots on goal. Kyle Langford, 4 shots on goal, 2 shots on goal. Goes all the way back again to Cody Waitman earlier, where he had 6 shots and 4 goals. So that mid and that smaller forward, you can get some value there. I've got a bonus bet in this one. Geelong small forwards aren't great. Close, he's been playing, as you said, not very close to goal as of recent weeks. You look at Brian Myers, they use him as a small forward early in his career. Now he's at inside 50. He's one of the best kicks, the leader in goal assists. You're probably not going to get any value there. Stengel, he's probably going to kick some goals. But if you think that Port Adelaide are going to win, you can't get a lot of value for 2 or 3 goals. $1.30 for 1 goal, I'm not taking that. Who I am going with is Patrick Dangerfield. He averages 1.3 shots per game over his 8 this season. He's coming back in. He's coming off an injury. They'll probably look to rest him forward a little bit. He can get some absolute some looks at it. We know he's not a great set shot, but him coming back, he's got a big role to play. They were up and about early before he had that injury, and him going out's really hurt them. $2.50 with a bonus bet for him to kick 1 goal, I think is absolute value. So I'm going to sit back, enjoy that, and just cheer on Danger for a goal.
Just hope he doesn't have a set shot from 45 out because he's not
I
very
hope
good
he has
at
so
them.
many set shots from 45 out. I hope
he might ping one.
He might clunk one.
Looking at the teams, which is something I don't really do because the teams don't really matter, in the positions. Dangerfield named in the back pocket next to Sam DeConing. How's that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right. Yeah, right, Pez. But even still, if they're going to start him as the back, we're losing resources here. What's going on there?
I don't know, they've got large pockets.
Was you just dropping the news bomb, was it?
Should have news bomb out.
News bomb was that he's playing in the back pocket. Terrible. All right, let's get on to hopefully, which is not terrible. Looking at the start of the year, this would have been probably a top 4 clash that you would have thought, but one team going extremely well, and the other team, well, not so much. Brisbane taking on Sydney at the Gabba. The Lions return to the Gabba, so hopefully they return to form. $1.21 favourites are the Lions. Sydney outsiders at $4.30. The line here was originally at 22.5 when it opened at the start of the week. It's out to minus 28.5. But earlier, as of today, you could have got 25.5. So this line is fluctuating quite a bit. Over 172.5. The Lions have been great at home, terrible away. They had some big news this week with a couple of players standing down, and actually today they stood down. So it'd be very interesting to hear your thoughts, Pez, watching them live last week, and one of those players playing in there. What's going to happen to Brisbane and how they come out and attack the Swans?
Yeah, I'm a little bit spewing because I can't remember if I texted you or not, but when I'm there on Saturday, I'm sitting there going, I reckon Daniel Rich is finished here. Like, he's not looking very mobile. He's very slow. He's a liability on defence when teams are running and pushing against him. Like, he went to ground a few times, Sauce, on the weekend when he was defending, just as an out to go, you know what? If I go to ground here, that means I don't have to chase. And his body doesn't look right. He is still an amazing kick, and that's why he's still been in the team. But he's put his hand up and he said, yep, I'm going to have a rest and go down there. So is Jack Gunston, which I found a little bit interesting because I thought he really changed their forward line dynamic earlier in the season, but maybe they want to go a little bit smaller and go from there. So very interesting. But with the rich news in terms of betting here, Sauce, I've got a few players in mind to have a look at. But when I had a look, their over-under isn't out because it's on Friday and it's only Thursday today. So unless it's up now, if you're on there. But I'm looking at Coleman, who was the sub last week, and he usually plays that kick-out role in defence when Daniel Rich is out. And he's got a beautiful left foot kick. Yes, he makes some errors as a young player, but I think they just need to give him the keys. Daniel Rich, I think, may be finished and not be able to come back into the side. Give him the keys, run through him out of defence, and just give him the confidence he needs to continue to rise. He's been a great first half player when Daniel Rich hasn't played, racking up 12, 13, 14 disposals at half time, and then he goes missing in the second half. So he just needs some consistency and go from there. So I'll be looking at Coleman's line to see if that's any value to go over. The other player I'm looking at is Will Ashcroft because he gets 28 disposals a game at the Gabba, but he struggles away from the Gabba. Yeah. So it's very weird. It's like an 8-point differential in his average of disposals. So with no McCluggage, who got a bad concussion last week, Ashcroft to get over his disposals. And I'm going to look at the teams more closely, but I'm looking at Zach Bailey because I think he's going to get a bigger midfield role with no McCluggage, no Daniel Rich, so he'll need to come and get those kicks off Coleman and be that link-up player through the middle of the ground. So they're the three I've got on watch for the over-unders. Yeah, it's so funny. We don't talk about this before the game, Pez, and I had highlighted when you said the news about Rich going out is Coleman, because you're right, he's been a player that has been increasingly inconsistent, but he fluctuates from about 15 to that sort of 20 mark, and last week he ended up with 6, which was really interesting. As the sub. Exactly right, as the sub. So, but him coming into this, and I think the pressure that the players, whether they've been tapped on the shoulder or not, but two players mid-season, a top 4 side that, premiership favourites throughout this season at times, that they've just stood down. So there's a lot of people that are on notice that'll put a rifle up a few of the Brisbane players who were very complacent last week, and they look like they just come off a bye. They return to home. They play a Sydney Swan team that's not mildly out of form, but they're extremely out of form. They're poor this year. They've been very poor. I've just put together a 3-league same-game multi. Brisbane have been extremely great at home at the Gabba. We know that's a fortress. They're going to bounce back big in this one. They've been beating the line a lot, but 28.5, there's not a lot of value in that one. Again, that one started quite low as well. I've gone with the 3-league same game multi. Before we even spoke, Caden Coleman to get 15 disposals, $1.34. Like that's a great little set in there. I'll look to do the same, I reckon. Him over his under line, or even 20 plus, you get some value. I've gone Brisbane plus 10.5 as you pick your own line, and then I got a big win. Brisbane 40 plus, and I just, only to get a little bit of value with that one. I've put that in there, Pez, and I have not got the odds on my... Oh, here we go. So $2.40, and I've put 2 units on that one, Pez, with sports bet. So, one leg fails, money back. So as long as Brisbane win, I think that the only big one is the 40 plus, but we know what happens when they get up and rolling. Yeah, well, Coleman has to be that player. Just do be aware if you do put all your eggs in one basket with Coleman, he can be inconsistent, but at $1.34, we like the value, so we're going to continue to run with that, his inconsistency is still sitting from 12 to 20. So, it's not like he's going to be inconsistent and drop off completely. Last week was the sub. I'm sure, if he goes to the sub again, you get your money. You get your money back anyway for those ones. Because it's only the start 22. He can't be the sub. He's an obvious replacement for Rich. I'll be very surprised if. But even still, if you want that value and you're worried about that aspect, you get your money back with most agencies if he's not in the starting 22. So you saw McCluggage get tackled by Sicily. So Sicily, upheld with his 3 weeks. He walked off the ground, and at the ground it was really strange because he's walked off from the opposite side to the bench, and instead of walking across the ground, they actually brought the stretcher out, and then he didn't go on the stretcher. Oh, that was ridiculous. He went to the outside of the ground and walked all the way around. So he held up the game for an extra 2 or 3 minutes by walking around there. But I heard during the week that he called up his mum, and his mum hadn't watched the game yet. And he's like, oh, just so you know, I get knocked out. I've been knocked out in the game. She's like, that's good. She's like, did you win or lose? Dude, not if you're all right. No care. Did you win or lose? And then we said, we lost, and she would have hung up. yeah. I don't know the rest of the story, but that was an interesting one to see. I was listening to that on the Triple M, and I was driving to my girlfriend's house, and non-stop BT was just, this is ridiculous. Where is Comet? And Laps, you know how he gets on a tangent. He's like, he's off the ground, and they're still waiting. Oh, they're going to make him go through the gate, to the point where I'm like, what is going? Because he was harping on so much that I didn't understand what's happening.
it's only a 7-minute drive to my girlfriend's house. Pulled over and I'm like, what's going on? And I looked at the footage and I'm like, well, that's an interesting one. And then literally watching him go all the way around. The Brisbane Blokes did the right thing, but
when he came off to this side of the ground, opposite of the change rooms, I thought he was going to go down one of the races and like go underground or go around the ground instead of having to wait for him go all the way around. So that was a little bit silly. Just, he's not coming back on, obviously. The doctors, just get him on the stretcher and get him off as fast as possible.
Get him off. Yeah, he's been knocked out. You just get him off. All right. Speaking of, speaking of getting off.
You're going to be getting off, huh?
Jesus. Well, a couple of years ago when we were painting the team orange, we might have been getting off.
Something after that.
But we get on to, and while you get up and just do a little break, Pez, I'll definitely have another Frosty as well. So GWS taking on Fremantle in this one. This will be a great clash, this one, I think. $1.84 are the Giants playing some really fast, high-scoring, exciting football, taking on Fremantle with, a team that we thought had found some form. $1.96 outsiders playing in Canberra this one. 1.5 is the line over under 169.5. Pez, I'm going to stall a little bit while you get ready and to get your beers there and first mouthful in, which is always the best mouthful. But I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. Fremantle, we were all over them last week. We definitely misread it. Is there going to be an adjustment in your look on Fremantle, or are you using that as a proper indication of their actual form? Because I think like we're holding Fremantle on that really impressive win against Melbourne, and we're probably looking at more how inconsistent they are than their actual one-off win against Melbourne.
Yeah, they really miss Sam Darcy. I think in the middle of that ground, like Luke Jackson, he did all right, but without Sam Darcy being dominant there for the midfielders on Saturday night, it was really hard for Fremantle to get on top of Richmond. And Richmond were back to the Richmond of old where they would like tap the ball in front of them and run onto it and, just keep the ball alive and keep it ready to go to try and get a goal. So I'm really nervous here to tip Fremantle if it's, without Sam Darcy, especially against the Giants there at home. So this one, I could toss a coin. I don't know who I'm going to tip yet. And so that means I definitely don't know who I'm going to bet on either side. Nothing with me here for disposals or anything like that. We know Lockie Whitfield likes to take the kickouts, so depending on what value he is, I didn't have a decent look at that because I wasn't really interested in betting on this one.
Yep, sorry, I thought you were going to go a little bit longer and I've got a cough about to come, but that's great podcasting at its finest. I'm much the same. I think that I actually don't know which way I'm going to tip. I did my tips earlier in the week and, just in case that way if I forget, that's done.
It's really important
and
to do.
I did it again this morning and I changed it and honestly, I was waiting to hear some of your thoughts in this because it's a toss-up game and it's really hard to pick a winner because, GWS have been pretty good. They've been pretty good. They've had the wins that they probably expect them to have, but they've been competitive against good sides as well. They had an impressive win at the Cattery when the Cats had sort of no lineup.
Excuses.
Some excuses. All right, but they also had a pretty impressive win last week against North Melbourne, who have been travelling quite well, and I think that the bookies are really underrating them. What I do know about Fremantle and GWS is Fremantle, they're a great defensive team, which people may be a little bit shocked, but what that doesn't mean is that doesn't mean that the opposition team don't get a heap of possessions. So even still them being a great defensive team, they still give away a heap of possessions. The GWS also collect a heap of disposals as well. They give away, they collect the fourth most, and almost 30 over the league average. So they get a lot of the pill, and with Fremantle giving away a lot of the pill, my money's all on GWS midfielders at home to collect the pill a heap. Now, I know that Kelly comes back into the side, so there's a little bit of wary about some of those midfielders. So I've taken advantage of that because Canelio, to get 25 or more, he's $1.65. He's only missed that once, Pez, for the whole year. It was 2 weeks ago. When Kelly's been in there, he's hit 25 every other time. Okay. So I think that's really great value for a bloke that's, gone 13 out of 14 rounds, 12 out of 13 rounds, hitting over the 25 at $1.65. That's pretty consistent against a team that gives away a lot. So I got him as my first leg of my 3-leg same game multi with Tab. Lockie Whitfield for 20 or more. He's only missed it once. That's pretty just a free hit there. And then I've gone Toby Green. So it's 15 plus disposals. He has missed it twice this year, but he's in killer form at the moment. The defense will really make him push up the ground a little bit because they'll try and get him to utilise that pill a bit. The defense is really good at keeping them out of the inside 50. I think he'll go up the ground a bit, collect his own pill. He's great to watch. I'll enjoy that. $2.10, small odds, 2 units for it. 1 leg fails, money back with Tab.
Yeah, with Toby Green getting 15, I think your tip is going to be the Giants for this weekend, because if he gets 15 disposals, he'll have a really big say on this game.
Yeah, but I'm sort of also accounting for him to be pushed up the ground a fair bit. So, they injected him to midfield at times last week and the last couple of weeks with Kelly out. Kelly returning to that midfield. You are probably right. I probably am leaning towards the Giants the more that we unpack that. So, yeah, good. Thanks for helping your own tip there, Sauce.
If he's up the ground and he's getting 15 disposals, that means he's kicking it inside 50. 8, 9, 10 times?
It also means he's not kicking the goals. He's been their leading goal scorer. He's been, the game winner off his own boot a couple of times this year. Like, without Toby Green, they wouldn't have beaten a range of teams. Like, he's been so impressive.
Oh, yeah. And he always...
We love, people from the podcast know that we love Toby Green. And he still hasn't shaken that rep from the fly kick of the Western Bulldogs. Yeah, blah, blah. But, he's in ripper form, and I worry him being away from goals, whether their goals are going to be still coming from him. But... Anyway, let's get on to your boys. Richmond taking on St Kilda. $1.74 favourites are the Tigs. St Kilda outsiders, $2.10. -4.5 is the line. Over under 165.5. This is a great game, this one. Both coming off wins. Both playing sort of decent football in the last sort of month. St Kilda a little bit inconsistent, but, this season's definitely exceeded expectations of them. I'm really looking forward to this one. I know you are as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'll go along Saturday night at the MCG. Nice and cold over there. But Trent Cotchin's 300th game. So that's been a big talking point during the week. Marlon Pickett is not playing because they have a, pickpocket type thing going on with Marlon over there.
Was that your play on words with a pickpocket?
Oh, I don't know. 380.
I hope it wasn't. I hope you've got more empathy there, Pez.
380 grand for Marlon over there doing what he did. I would have probably faked an injury and not gone back to Western Australia if I knew that police wanted to talk to me or whatever.
Move on, please. Please move on. Jesus Christ.
We'll continue.
How many beers have you had? There's a couple of bottle caps there.
This is the second one. But without Marlon Pickett, I don't know who that helps really, but... Richmond, Tom Lynch isn't going to be coming back, I don't think. Please don't tell me he is, because then I really don't like it. But Richmond, $1.74. I was a little bit shocked to see the odds more so in Richmond's favour instead of a more even type money game, and I wonder if that's to do with the 300 games or if there's news on who's coming back or whatever that might be. So I'm interested to see St Kilda play at the MCG. I think their defence can really hold up there, and Ross Lyons proved that in the past. And I think they can get a hold of their defence. Callum Wilkie on Jack Riewoldt possibly, who Callum Wilkie probably should be an All-Australian defender at this stage. Absolutely amazing key defender for a smaller man and able to kick it out of defence miraculously as well. So I've just gone with my bonus bet from Tab. I needed to juice the odds up a little bit, so pick your own line. St Kilda -10.5 at $3.10 with my Tab bonus.
Yeah, I actually really like that, Pez. I like what you said there about Richmond and the way that they're adjusting their setup and their format to complement Trent Cotchin's 30 games. He's 300 plus. 300. Oh my! I can't even talk. He's 300 games.
How many beers have you had?
1.4. 1.4, I think that's standard drinks. But I like the way you're saying that, because they definitely have done that. I heard this on a podcast earlier. So, they've really been boosting those players coming to those milestone games. And I think that really will affect Richmond. If you look at these two teams, Richmond taking on St Kilda, they both played teams that are in the similar sort of bracket last week. Fremantle and Sydney. Both teams that we thought were going to be really good. They've both sort of underperformed. One hit by injuries, one hit by, I don't really know what, no excuses. But I think St Kilda had a more impressive win last week. I thought they were really impressive. They're playing in Melbourne. They didn't have to travel back from Perth. It's a 50-50 game, $2.10. I love that. I will wait until the lineups are confirmed and I can get a little bit more information, because if Lynch comes in, well, then that's completely different. But, an early lean towards the Saints at $2.10. Head over to Bluebet, 12 up at half time. I like that action.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Saints have disappointed their supporters for over 70 years, so we'll see what happens there.
That is the greatest segue ever. So disappointment, and the first team that comes up is Carlton.
Can it get any worse?
Tell you what, I think football is great when the big football teams are playing well. Your Carlton, your Collingwood, your Essendon, everyone's buzzing in Victoria. But tell you what, football is so much better when the Blues are shit, because they pile on so hard. And Carlton taking on the Gold Coast Suns, this traditionally would have looked as a lock-in win, but The bookies are wary about this one. $1.75 favourites are Carlton after 3 weeks of bad goal kicking and persistence with this round the body kick and poor goal kicking. And
we said to ban it. Harry Mackay, do not do it. Do not do it.
He'd be better just to handball it off.
He didn't make the distance.
Surely now it's a bit of an arrogance thing. Surely now it's a being stubborn and just going, you know what? No, I can't listen to the haters. And if I adjust now, I'll cop more criticism.
You could see in that first half.
Yeah.
It is playing on his mind and it
has
is
to.
absolutely amazing. But there's 83,000 there, Carlton, Essendon. And some of the Essendon supporters would have been really up and about.
Yeah, definitely.
But Carlton can they let their fans down anymore? There's been some great fans out there on Talkback Radio, on TikTok. And the most comments that go against them and just bait them are the Collingwood fans. This Collingwood-Carlton rivalry, with Collingwood being first and Carlton being in the bottom
Especially
four.
them flogging them a couple of weeks before.
It's still amazing, and Carlton supporters saying, they're still the biggest club in the country, and then the Collingwood supporters going back at them. It's
speaking of like historical, hatred as well. Whose idea was it to bring out all the premiership cups?
What a shit idea.
Well, these teams are Essendon are on the rise there, but if Essendon haven't won a final in almost 10,000 days, almost 8 years or whatever it was, Carlton are horrible at the moment. Why the fuck are we celebrating that shit in a round 13 game on a Sunday night? Well, whose idea is that?
Well, I saw a few people on social media saying, it's because of the history. We're the best clubs and things like this.
So is that just reminding the fans, hey guys, we're not always bad?
Hey guys, we won premierships when there were 4 teams in the competition in the early days of the VFL. So this is really good. But you speak to an Essendon or a Carlton supporter and you speak to them about a current season, and you say, hey, you guys are no good. Hey, we've got 16 premierships, is usually the people who have no idea what they're talking about just going, you know what, I'm just going to go to the history, play the history card, and then you can't say anything because my club's the best because we've won 16. What a ridiculous argument.
Carlton, their last premiership was 95.
Correct.
Right? Essendon's last premiership was 2000.
Correct.
So that's 95, what's that, 27 years? Is that right? 95,
yeah,
27
28.
years for them to be relevant within the finals, and Essendon to be relevant. Well, they haven't won since 2004. So half of those supporters there wouldn't even know the history of it. Like, it's such a ridiculous thing. And you got to live in the present, and we're harping on about Carlton, but it's fun to harp on.
It's funny. Now they play here at the Gold Coast.
We actually haven't even got to the odds of the Suns. That's how terrible Carlton are, because the moment you bring up Blues, you get a little bit of goal kicking trauma and you go through it. But $1.75 are the Blues. Gold Coast 2.10 playing away from the sunny Gold Coast. -3.5 is the line, over under 160.5.
Now Paddy Cripps, he does not look right. Like, if he's not injured, then he needs to be dropped, because there's no point in him playing because he can't run the other way. There's no point in him getting the ball. Put someone in that is fit. Paddy Dow being the sub, that was absolutely ridiculous as well. Having Ed Curnow in the team, he's been butchering the ball for the past 8 weeks. Get him out of the team. He's finished. He's done. Put in Paddy Dow. Give him the rest of the season and see what he can come up with for your footy club. Worst case scenario, he gets 20 plus touches a game and he gets some more trade value at the end of the season. So he's been playing well in the VFL. Just put him in and let him go. All Carlton mids are too much the same. Blake Acres, a reject from St Kilda who Carlton supporters loved. Now they seem to hate him. Of course. He wasn't expected to be a really good midfielder. Sam Walsh needs to pick up his game. De Koning needs to pick up his game if he wants to sign that big contract as well with another club. And Carlton, they just need to win. And I need them to win more than anything this week for one of the knockout competitions. And I really, really hope that Carlton win. And the reason for that is I'm putting Blue Bet Carlton to win at $1.74. I'm putting 2 units on it, Sauce. And let's see if they can let me down
at Blue Bet?
Yep.
At what odds?
$1.74.
Love it. Do you know what I love it, Pez? Because you're right, everything points, again, to Carlton. Carlton have to win it. You look at teams after a bye. The only team that is worse than Geelong at 3-7 after a bye is Gold Coast, 2-8. But Gold Coast have been pretty horrible for a little bit. And if you're looking at Gold Coast form, they're probably playing one of their more consistent seasons in the last couple of years. But again, after a bye, playing away from home against Carlton, you look at the lineup, everything points to Carlton. But for shits and gigs, Pez, they are still fucking shit. They're so horrible, and
they're dead to you.
They are dead to me, and again, everything points to Carlton for the 3rd week in a row. And for the third week in a row, Pez, I'm going against Carlton. Last week I said that I wanted to go against them, but Essendon were also dead to me. $2, blue bet, 2 units, Gold Coast to win. My boys, the Suns, are going to win and continue this embarrassing this football club.
Don't do it to me.
But Pez, I know that and I'm hoping my bet loses so you can clean up in the winners comp. But it's incredible that in 3 weeks in a row, if you've listened to Sauce and just you've written off Carlton, which every other supporter has that follow Carlton, you're making profit. $2.10, history, statistics, everything points to Carlton.
They have to turn it around.
But they're
Carlton.
They're horrible. So
Please, Carlton.
2 units with that one, and
Head to head again.
Head to head again. All right, let's get on to the last game of the round. As you said, only 6 games going ahead this week. North Melbourne versus the Doggies. 4:30 outsiders are North Melbourne playing at Etihad Stadium. 1-2-2. $1.22. Favourites are the Dogs. Minus 28.5 is the line. Over under 173.5. This line's already come in. It was 31 at the start of the week, 30 early in the day. The bookies have jumped on this one, 28.5. So really interested to see third week in a row if North Melbourne can cover that line.
Yeah, looking forward to the teams coming out in 5 minutes' time because, Jesus, dying over there.
Still recovering from COVID, mate.
Because I think they're going to field one of their strongest teams in this season. So it'll be interesting under the roof there. Jaden Stevenson has been kicking goals as well up forward, so maybe have a look at his odds and see what you think there. But nothing for me at the moment. It is the last game on a Sunday. It is the twilight fixture, so depending how we go in round 14, I might have a nibble or a dabble if I've got a bonus bet or something floating around there. But I'll just leave it for the minute Sauce.
Yeah, I actually really like North Melbourne in this one. North Melbourne have been pretty impressive at Etihad over this season. You know, a couple of their victories coming, or one of their victories early coming, obviously at Etihad. The Doggies on a 3-game losing streak. Listeners of the pod will know that I'm not a big fan of the Bulldogs. I think they're extremely overrated this year.
Do you like anyone?
No, I don't even like Geelong this week, to be honest. But, I think that North Melbourne at 30.5 early in the day was great value. It's come in a little bit, which I'm a little bit disappointed on. I didn't get able to get that. But a 30-point head start at a venue that they play quite well. They get an injection into that midfield, hopefully. The teams will be announced soon. I expect Jai Simpson to come back and get a couple more, bigger bodies through that midfield. Sheasel's playing well. Warlord's playing well. Nick Larkey's kicking goals. There's a lot of things that are pointing towards North Melbourne remaining competitive.
Taron Thomas has come back and
wow.
he's in some ripping form. I know he's had his personal issues.
But you know what? He needs
people
to.
might not like him, but
back to the wall, last roll of the dice. He's got to get that going there.
He's a good footy player.
Yeah, of course he is.
He's just
he's making he's making some poor choices.
A bit of air up there.
Making some poor choices off the field. Hopefully he can get his life back together and, use this form to really kickstart a more positive direction for him. I'm leaning towards North Melbourne for the 30 plus or the 28.5. I might even lower the odds and get the $1.60, $1.70. I mean, also sneaky ready for a tip for them as well because Beveridge at the moment is not really coaching well, and in 3 losses in a row, this would boil over, and it would be very interesting if they can not salute a win this one.
What is interesting, the teams just come across my desk here.
Across your desk.
Josh Bruce here omitted because he was horrible last week, and Arthur Jones, who didn't have a disposal, only had 6 tackles. He's been omitted as well. But ins for North Melbourne, no outs yet. Hugh Greenwood, Jai Simpkin, and Kane Turner.
Exactly what I just said. So that midfield boosters up. That's probably where that line's come in, as it has. And I think that they're a real shot of causing an upset. They controlled the game. 2 weeks ago it was against Essendon. Essendon I put in a similar sort of vein as the Western Bulldogs. Probably Western Bulldogs are a little bit higher. Expect a really competitive game and possibly the North Melbourne to surprise a few and get the win.
Jack Silvani, Jesse Motlop omitted. That's the big game that I need to go. Alex Sexton coming back in.
We're past the Blues. We've talked enough about the Blues.
No. bit nervous. I've got to check the teams.
I told you the Gold Coast is looking good.
I've got to check the teams.
All right. Well, while Pez checks the teams and acts unprofessionally on his podcast and worry about his own personal punt and giving the punters value. If you have enjoyed the show or you are finding some value, we'd love to hear your tips and your predictions and any trends that you're following. Jump on Twitter @BehindTheBound and give us a shout out and send us a DM. We get a few of those each week about hey lads, what's this going on? What do you think about this? We're always open to giving advice and make sure you jump on all podcast providers, give us a 5-star review and leave some comments there. It helps other punters find the value and find us online.
Yeah, at Behind the Bound, get around it. Round 14, best of luck, and hopefully you are up on the punt this year if you do punt. So I'm Pez, peace out.
I'm still Sauce. Go Suns. We'll catch up next time.
Now you're